Welcome back to Beyond the Buckets. I'm happy to have Coach Jimmy Huber. Welcome to the show.
Hey man, I feel like I just got electrocuted, man. I got hair growing. I think coming out now. It's just I'm sprouted fully through, but I feel it coming, man.
I hear
Hey,
that.
Chris.
Well, thanks to your partner in crime, he got me on the StreamYard. So just playing with it and seeing how we could
I like that.
include the intro. It helps on the post production because you just put that in there and you can just kind of put the video
Oh, that's
up.
good
So
stuff. I like that. Right
yeah,
up.
man. So technology, one of the beautiful things in the last year, we've kind of found out we can do a lot of things this way. So happy to have you on, brother.
Well, I appreciate the be on and thanks for the invite. I look forward to it.
Well, I usually like to start with a fun fact, something that people that even know you might not even know. And you can go any direction you want, but you can keep it basketball, you can keep it personal, whatever you like.
I would say one thing is I got kicked out of a sixth grade basketball game one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was started out coaching, when I got out of college, and I felt like 2 feet tall, and I actually was coaching, and I didn't like a call that took place, and I pounded the bleachers, and the official turned around to me, said something, I said, "What?" And they kicked me out, and I was like, "What?" So I walk outside, watch the game from outside of a hallway to school. And I was like, well, that's probably not the best way to go about coaching sixth grade basketball players. So I'd apologize to the kids and the parents. And I said, that will not happen again. And I'll make sure I change in a good way to make sure I'm emulating how I want individuals to act. So as I say that, a lot of times when people look at you and see certain things you do, whatever, they think, oh, you never made mistakes or you have it all figured out. I've made plenty of mistakes in coaching in my life. And that's where you kind of hopefully learn and grow, become better at what you do today.
Well, that sounded like me last week. But no, that's happened so many times, and sometimes you have to just take yourself away from it and understand that it's just basketball at the end of the day. And there's so many more things that are important in life. But it is important to compete. It is important to give your best and really show the kids that you care. But like you mentioned, learn and grow from it. And there's other opportunities for you to display that. I don't know. I wouldn't even say anger, but just that behavior in a different way. So glad you learned from it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I think like that's what like Doc Rivers reminds me all the time when he talks about when he walks in and talks to his team. He says, "Hey, my name's Doc Rivers. I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes.
yeah.
Right? We're all going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect. Hopefully, make decisions that are going to be best for our organization. And sometimes they're not going to be decisions that you like. But I think, as you mentioned, it's like we're not perfect, but can we learn and grow through what we're doing and become better, not only for ourselves, but people we're leading as well."
Yeah, while you say that, I think it's Doc Rivers. I think also did something where he was recently talking within the last year. My name is Glenn Doc Rivers. I'm African American. My father's a cop, and he kind of went down that whole thing
Yeah.
and just explained that not all cops are bad. They're
Mhm.
put in dire circumstances, and for one reason or another, sometimes they act out of order, and that's why some of these things have been happening. But same thing with coaches, like they only see you as coach. Like I remember the first time I saw a student outside of teaching them, they were like, "Coach, you go to the grocery store?" Like it's like a weird thing when they see you outside of your normal
Yeah.
capacity as a teacher or educator or coach.
Yeah, it's and I think it's one of those things that you're human, right? I mean, it's like I'm a coach and I'm a leader of, and especially you have something that they want.
Yeah.
They want to play a sport, they want to do that. And Billy Graham always talks about that you have, a coach will influence more people in 1 year than most people do in a lifetime.
Right.
So these kids and people they're open to what you have to say, and they almost put you on like kind of godlike, but like on this kind of this element, like this high mountain that you're there. But then, like you said, when they get outside and they see you outside of this court or this field or whatever, it's like, man, this normal person, right?
Yeah.
And then you can have a normal conversation with this individual outside of just talking about the particular sport they're playing.
For sure. And I'd like to add on to that because I think some people don't really understand how much a coach devotes outside of their personal time to other people's children. We spend so much time with these kids, as you just mentioned, and pouring into them, and hopefully they'll learn some good things by playing in our program or our team. But the outsiders don't really understand how much goes into it. Like if you got a team of 12, there's 12 different interpersonal relationships that are going on. And then you multiply that by the other influences that they have in their life, whether that be parents or guardians or grandparents, and they all want the best for their kids. And when you're trying to put them in a situation to be successful, it's sometimes for the entire group, not just an individual. It's very difficult on the coach to please everybody. And we're definitely not going to please everybody, but I wish that people outside of the program would just recognize more and say thank you more for the time and value that the coach actually brings in, like yourself and like me.
Well, if you think about this, like let's relate it to high school. High school coaches, they get maybe a certain stipend, to coach throughout the year. And sometimes like around this area, it could be like $7,000 or whatever it might be.
Yep.
And you're talking about now in high school basketball, it's not just a 5-month season. It becomes a year-round type deal, especially if you're building out a program.
Yeah.
So if you take the time, not only spend in practice, outside of practice, like me, if I'm a high school coach or a coach, I'm preparing the season and I'm breaking down my practices and my practice plans and everything's detailed out, right? So that takes time. And then you're also, if you're going and sitting there, you have games and you're getting ready to go play somebody, I'm breaking down film of who we're playing, their tendencies, right? What we can do to take certain things away, scouting reports we're putting in, we're going over this. That takes time, right? And all this thing, when you break down as much time as you spend coaching and what you get paid, it's less than minimum wage.
For sure.
And people don't understand, a lot of times coaches too, they're sacrificing time away from their family, their direct family. Right? They're outside the home in the evenings when their kids are maybe home, this and that, and they're not around. So I always tell individuals, I've heard this at one time, it's like this guy's older coach, Hall of Fame coach, mentored me. He said, you're a high school coach and you get the job, everybody's excited. It's like, oh man, we're excited, Chris. You got 100 people like, hey, thanks for taking over. We're excited to have you. That other coach is there. Man, he wasn't a very good coach. We're glad you're taking over though. All right, so 100 people like you. Then all of a sudden you have tryouts and you form the JV and varsity. And maybe you have 24 spots, right? And now you have 76 people that don't really like you, right? Okay, so now you got 24 people like you. Well, you got to separate it up. Now you got your varsity. Now you got 12 people in your varsity. Okay, well, now 88 people maybe don't like you really well, right? Okay, 12 people like you, but now you get the season going. But you only can start 5, right? Okay, so 5 people start. So now maybe 95 people don't like you. Right. Okay, now you got your 5 starters and you're going, and now you got maybe 2 key players who are getting most of the shots. Now 97 people don't like you, or 98 people don't like you. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you think 2 people like you, but then maybe those individuals don't get the scholarships they thought they were going to get. You didn't help them as much. So maybe no one really likes you. Exactly. But the bottom line is you better do the things that you feel like are the right things to do and stand by what you believe in and make those decisions. Because you're never going to please everybody in the game of basketball. Because you might have somebody that likes you, and they might think you're great as a coach, but you shift and change the role of their child the next year, next season, whatever, they don't like you anymore, right? You're not as good a coach. So again, a lot of times I'll tell like parents, you have to step outside and see things differently from a different perspective and understand the coaches are there. They're trying to succeed the best they can. They're at the practices when you're not there. They see what your child is doing. But hopefully understand this, there's only so many times a kid, like you sit there and have your parents and be like, hey, how many of you want your kid to average 10 points a game or this amount, whatever, and all write down, they all want 10 points, right? Well, everybody can't average 10 points a game or 12 points. It's not going to happen.
Right.
But the biggest thing I tell parents all the time, let's not focus on statistics and numbers. What can your child learn through the sport?
Sure.
Okay. Can they be a better communicator? Can they handle adversity better? Can they be a better teammate, working with people better? What can they learn through this situation of playing a sport? And now maybe the difficult times they're going through, that they become better and they develop skill sets through that. And you allow them to do this. And you allow the coach to coach them the way that they need to, and maybe in a tough accountability way that's going to help them become better. So I see too many coaches, they don't hold kids accountable because they're afraid of maybe repercussions they might get from parents or kids leaving programs because it's easier to go with these other places. But it doesn't do the justice for the kids, right? And that's what we're
Absolutely.
trying to do is develop kids through the sport.
Yeah, for sure. I think you hit the nail on the head too. And for me, I think it's if I can, if the kids understand and know that I was fair, then I'm good with whatever the outside thinks. I really don't care about, at this point in my career anymore, about how the outside feels about me. But if the kid feels like it was fair, then I'm perfectly okay with however it comes off or is perceived outside of it, because the kids are the ones that matter. That's the reason why we do what we do. It's for the kids and the betterment of their future outside of basketball. And there's so many parallels that I get from you, and I've learned from some great minds in basketball. But why don't we give everybody some context about who you are, where you grew up, and how you came to be where you are? You've got a fantastic resume, over 25 years coaching at each one of the levels, and you've coached every single level, whether that be junior high, middle school, high school, collegiate, and pros. So tell me a little bit about the origin story for you.
Yeah, I'm based out of Kansas City, but when of course, I played basketball in college and baseball as well, but always kind of wanted to be this, professional basketball player, and wasn't good enough to play at that type of level. And when I got done, I'm like, well, I wanted to be in sports. So I ended up becoming an athletic administrator in college and a basketball coach and assistant, and then become a head coach at 25 at a college level. And I thought I was ready, but you think you know more than what you do. And so I learned a lot, some hard lessons through my initial coaching, being a head coach in college. And then I was an assistant at a Division I school and did that. But it's amazing as I was doing that, the money back in those days, you're making like $18,000. You're not making maybe that much. And this is back in like almost 99, 2000, but still 18,000. You're working long hours. This is back when VHS tapes, when we're breaking down stuff, splicing, and you'd be overnight working on this stuff. It was a pain in the rear to get it ready for coaching that. And so, doing that, I love basketball, but I'm like, man, I want to go make $1 million, right? And make $1 million. So you go out and start chasing, like going doing business type things. And it's like you're chasing this butterfly, but you never can catch it. And I was out of the basketball, but then I got placed back in. God brought me back in, and started helped kind of one of top programs today, kind of a Nike program, helped build that up. And then just kind of was doing camps and clinics. And then I connected with individuals with Breakthrough Basketball. We connected and decided to do camps and clinics in Kansas City, develop systems, and we can take it kind of nationwide. And now we're in North America doing 300 some camps. So I've done that. And I've coached teams all the way from, like you said, from almost, kindergarten kids all the way to pros. And so I love coaching basketball. I love, coaching teams, but just teaching it. And a big thing for me also has been kind of, like we're talking about, developing people through the sport and developing, teaching life skills, life lessons. Because, and I know there's going to be a high percentage of kids, they're not going to play past high school. Most kids don't play in college, but some that do get the chance to do. But the low percentage of people play professional. So they have to have skill sets to be able to do something else in their life. So it's just been a passion of mine, basketball, teaching kids through the sport. And that's kind of where I'm at today.
Yeah, several different directions we can go, but you mentioned it, Mocha and Elite on the Nike EYBL circuit. I believe you joined them, sometime in the mid 2000s, or was it? What year did you join?
Yeah, I know that was like back. Yeah, it was like early 2000s. We kind of started that up,
And
kind of
so
built it. And
I want to know what it was like before it got to the EYBL, and we'll talk about some of the players that have gone through that program, because the list can almost be an NBA All-Star team, or at least a select few of them. So what was it like early on when you guys started to develop?
we first started up like it is when you start a program from scratch. And a friend of mine that's he played at UMKC. His name's Matt Souther, and he kind of had their idea of MoCan and developing that out. And I was an assistant at UMKC, and when I was out and he was leaving, he was like, "You want to start a program that would be developed that you wouldn't have kids transferring so much from colleges, and teach these kids really, more of a college-based program." So that was kind of his mentality, and helping, kids from the inner city, kids that don't have the resources, the funds to get education, to get opportunities. So when we first started out, there was a program in town. It was kind of the known program, and a couple others. And we were just like, we contacted some people we knew that were kind of had scouting services we knew through college and whatever. We're talking about kids in the area, and they connected us. And we ended up getting just like talking people, influencing them to come and play for us. When we started out, we didn't have the, top tier, top rated kids. We were kind of like junkyard dog. We got kids in and we said, hey, we're going to play hard. We're going to play together, but we're defensive end. We're going to be great in the defensive end. We're really tough man-to-man defense, executed. We ran practices. I mean, these were like 2.5, 3 hour practices on Saturday, twice a day. We got after it. And, we just went out and played hard and ended up going these tournaments and then started, beating programs were kind of the shoe-based programs, more well-known programs, and then had a chance to play in kind of a circuit or opportunity to play in a tournament to be able to be a team that could get selected as a Nike program. We ended up finishing top 2 in it and got selected and kind of built it from there. And now, of course, it's like at the time we weren't getting the Trey Youngs, the Michael Porters, the guys like that they're getting today. I mean, at that point, we're getting good players. Some of these kids would be like NAI players. Some of them would be like Division II type players, or low major, mid-major type players, but we weren't getting the top 50 kids. But now it's different. That's the type of kids they're getting today, more attracted to the program. And it's just kind of built and that foundation's kind of developed what it is in today.
Yeah. I'd like to get your input on the circuit. We had a couple of teams similar to that with Top Flight, and then when Tyler Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets sponsored our team because his younger brother was on the team and his younger brother was on our younger teams. But he did that for 2 years, and that, playing on that, and we didn't have any top 50 guys. Logan, who's really good, he's at St. Mary's right now. He had a really good year. He was kind of the headliner just because his brother was in the NBA. But we had really kids that we had homegrown from when they were very young all the way up, and all of them ended up playing in college at one level or another. Several of them went D1, but nobody went to like a Power 5. I guess Logan went to Cincinnati right out of high school, and then he ended up transferring to St. Mary's, but really no Pac-12 or Big 12 or Big 10 type of guys. But they beat a lot of those teams that were just more athletic and didn't play as hard and were more focused on isolation basketball and stuff like that. But competing at that level year in and year out is super difficult because, you've got so much competition with competing programs. You've got the lure of, hey, this guy can get you this or whatever it may be. And it's just we decided to go away from that route because we wanted to be more grassroots. And like you mentioned earlier, most of the kids that go through our program are not going to play in college. And they're lucky to be good players in their high school. That's really a great accomplishment in itself, but hardly any of them are going to go on to the pros or be able to play professionally. So we shifted our focus to what our main intention was. Before then, we wanted to get on one of these main circuits, but it didn't identify with our values any longer because we just want to help develop and grow the game. So talk about that push-pull being at, and there's a lot of pressure that goes along with that too, year in and year out. You're not guaranteed to be back on that EYBL circuit.
Oh, no.
So tell me about that push and pull with development compared to, these elite athletes that you are now getting.
Yeah, when you talk about that, I mean, like it's probably second my last year there. I was coaching the EYBL 17s, and it was our contract year. And we were kind of outside looking in to make the Peach Jam, and we had to finish like 7-2 down the stretch, and we ended up doing it and making it. And we ended up getting a contract renewal going through, but we were kind of on the verge whether we're going to get one or not or whatever. And since then, it's they're in a really good spot. But I think you have to, you understand the shoe circuits. What they're looking for is they're looking for the top players. I mean, I don't care where they're all trying to find the next Kobe Bryant's, the next KD's, the next LeBron James, the next Steph Curry's. They're trying to find individuals that can wear their shoes. So they're trying to find the best of the best. They're trying to get the pros, and they're competing against each other. Yeah. Right. So I think what you have to figure out, you have to think about as a program, do you want, like I hear people all the time, they're like, oh, around this area and different ones, we want to be a shoe circuit. We want to do this. We want this and that. And I'm like, it's not as easy as you think. Right. First of all, you got to have some high level individuals that you can bring into it that they see. And you got to make sure you be able to do that for a long period of time. And so for me, I think it goes back to, do you want to do that? Do you want to coach these type of kids? Because the other thing you get into is you got to make sure those kids stay.
Right.
I mean, these shoe circuit programs, the shoe circuits in general, they don't want those kids to leave to go to another shoe circuit, program. They don't want to go from Nike to Under Armour, Adidas. They want you to stay. So now you gotta decide, okay, can I coach the way that I want to coach?
Right.
Can I demand the way that I want to demand? Can I hold them accountable the way I want them holding accountable?
Yep.
And you might not be able to do that. So then you got to ask yourself, like for me to you is like, yeah, I'm a kind of individual. I like to coach a certain way.
Right.
I like to hold kids accountable.
Yep.
And demand from them. And it's not for everybody. So then, but I do know there's certain type of kids you're talking about that really thrive in that. And it might be, like you said, it could be a NCAA Division II type player, or maybe it's an NAIA player. Maybe it's not these high level players. They're good basketball players. And you can get them to play hard, play together, and listen to you, and you can enjoy the process.
Right.
So I think it goes back to what do you really want? And like look at you, you're not chasing that anymore. Sounds like what you're saying. You're doing this because this is your foundation, your values, so what you stand for, and you develop in your organization, and you can still go to these tournaments. You can still go to different places and play against these different organizations. You have to be a shoe circuit program to go.
Right.
I mean, now if you're a shoe circuit, if you're a shoe circuit team, and they have like the EYBL, you have to be EYBL team to play on the EYBL league. Right. But that doesn't matter if they're having one of their sessions in, say, Indianapolis, and they're having a 17, 16, 15 tournament in that area, and you're not a Nike sponsored team, you can go play there. And you can go play against those teams and do really well and go beat those teams and compete and put your kids out there and get exposure. And I tell people all the time, if the biggest thing you got to do too is this, you got to help your kids out. And the best way to do that is like a program like yours. You develop a booklet of information about your kids, and you send it to college coaches.
Right.
You send the information. You communicate about your kids and who you have and what levels they are and what they can do and whatever. And then you send them your schedules constantly when you're going to be playing, where you're going to be playing at, staying in contact with them. And it is, there might be a college coach that's sitting there in a facility with 8 courts, and they were watching a particular game, and your team's playing over 2 courts over, and they're not watching another person for another hour. No, I got a break in between. I'm going to go watch Chris's team because he's been hitting me up, watch a couple of his kids play. Never know.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's true. And our duty for us, speaking for us anyway, is we just want to help kids. So, we did partner up with West Coast Elite for our high school. So if they're good enough, they can play on the UAA circuit and be seen. If they're not good enough, there's still opportunities to play and be seen if they want to go that college route. So that's what we made. We made that decision because we just like the whole circuit thing. If you're doing it the right way, it ends up working for everybody. But there's so many programs that don't, and that's why AAU kind of gets a bad name when that the team hopping is already happening 3 or 4 times.
Well, and you go back to this, it's like, okay, you mentioned MoCan earlier. MoCan, to credit to them, they have good coaches in their high school program. I mean, these are good coaches, and if you go to their practices, they are very disciplined and structured practices.
Right.
I mean, these are they're running practices like in a college level, and the defense and the execution, the offensive end, and what they do. So when I was coaching the UIBL team, and we were go to these sites and places, you'd have some teams like we would show up. Like I'm just a believer that even when we first started, when we weren't at that level, I'm a planner. I mean, I'm finding advantages. Like I'm sitting there, I know, like, okay, our team, we're going to this tournament. I already have it laid out. Here's where we're playing. We're staying here. Here's our breaks in between. Here's the other teams that are playing. I can go watch these teams here. I can get some scouting stuff on them. Here's where we're going to have our pregame stuff to prepare before we go. Here's where we're going to get to the facility where we're going to do our pregame stretching, mindful, get ourselves ready to go play. Here's our warm-up. I'm bringing even like back in the day, like water. I have our own water. I have our own towels. I have our, snacks if we got, in between games that we got this championship Sunday back in the day. So I'm doing this stuff. And I'll tell you this, we'd show up and there'd be like teams show up like 10 minutes before game time. They just roll up. Yeah. And I always tell there's certain teams out there, programs, they just roll the ball out and go play.
No, you're right.
They just roll it out. And so they're gatherers. They gather the top talent and let's just go roll the ball out.
Right.
And I love playing those teams all day long because you can take stuff away from them. They struggle. They're not really teamed together. So what I get like with the MoCan, there's programs like a MoCan out there that they do things the right way. Like that's the way I like to see things done. Like, yeah, they have high talent, but they're developing these kids in a certain way. And there's other programs like them out there that do that. And unfortunately, there's some programs not like that just, again, go get the best players, roll it out, go play, and I don't think you're developing them to what like college is like. I remember like I was Nike Global Coach, the West team, and so we're there in our first practice, getting ready. And I swear I'm talking to these kids, and I got like kids on their phones texting while I'm talking to them. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What are you guys doing? I go, put your phones away. Don't even have them out. Like I was holding these individuals accountable. Like we would have also walkthroughs before we go play. Kids would show up late. I'd have to go get them, talking to them. And I would be telling them like, do you really think you're going to go play for Roy Williams at Carolina and do this? You're going to play for Patino at Louisville. You're going to go Bill Self. It's not going to happen. And these kids were having a hard time with the discipline accountability I was giving them. But I'm just like, I'm trying to help you develop the skill sets to succeed at that next level.
Yeah.
Because how you're going about it, that's not the way it's going to work.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to give you reality. This is really how it works. So you're prepared. And I feel like that's what some programs and people just don't do at times. They don't prepare these kids. So when they go, they're not ready. Right. And then when they have the hard time or it's not what they expected, they're bouncing and going somewhere else. And a lot of times don't even make it.
Well, a lot of people are bullshit. And you're not one of those people. You're direct, you're up front, and that's why I think I've grown to like you as soon as I met you last week, because so many people are willing to not do what their job is. Like one thing with the officials that I'll talk about is I get that they have to ref 8 games, but we could have the 8th game of that night. And you are literally the players in the front court now, and you're still in the back court. There's no justification other than you are tired. I get that, but you are getting paid the same amount to ref game 1 as you are in game 8, and the same thing can be said for coaches. You are getting paid to coach. So your job is not just to show up to the games. Your job is to prepare them like it was a championship game in every game. And if you do that, you're giving yourself.
Well, as you said, Chris, I mean, every game matters.
Yeah.
I don't care what game it is. I tell our guys all the time, we go play. We're not playing against them. We're playing against ourselves.
No doubt.
We're going to be the best version of us right here. And it's kind of like they say is how you. It's like, I heard that from PJ Fleck. I love it. I said it before, like, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yep.
It's we're in how you. I mean, everything matters in what you do. Everything. And as you said, me as a coach, I tell kids all the time, like even I'm running camps or doing something where I'll be like, all right, hey, all right, let's go sprint to theirs, and kids will be walking, whatever. I'll blow the whistle, pulling them. I cannot allow this to take place.
Yeah.
I can't lay my head at night on my pillow and feel good about myself if I don't do certain things a certain way, because I feel like I'm cheating you. Right. And I'm telling you, it's like, think about it. In life isn't so much like it's not going to be always easy handed to you. And the problem with a lot of these kids, you've been around it when you're young, when you're athletic, and you can do things on a court, a football field, whatever, people cater to you. They let you act up in class. They let you get away with not getting good grades.
Yeah.
Being disrespectful, whatever it is, because you can help us win some games. I'm one of those guys. I'm just different. I'm like, hey, listen, you're gonna be this way at home, you're gonna be this way in school, and you're gonna be this way on the basketball court. We're gonna be congruent. And if you don't worry, you just won't play. And if we lose, we lose. But you know what? We'll probably find a way to get it done without you. Right. And I'm confident in doing that. But see, but like, give you this. I'm going to give you something on this. This is something. Last night I go to a graduation party, and these kids, they there's one kid came back, was at the party, and he plays football, and he plays at Vanderbilt. And this kid, he was a freshman last year.
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt coach has left. They got a new coach coming in. New coach came in. He was the defense coordinator at Notre Dame, coming in. And I was like, well, how's is it better? What's going on? How do you feel? He goes, our coach is different. The culture is better. And I was like, really? How's the culture better? He's like, well, coach, listen, here's what he's doing. He's like, what he's done is he's not giving you any gear. He's not, name on your back. You got to earn everything. Everything you have to earn. You're not giving anything. And he says, what's great about it, though? He goes, there's already been a couple guys have been kicked off the team because I failed drug tests, I did this and that. And he said from the beginning, this is what we're going to do here. This is what we stand for at Vanderbilt. You don't do it, you're not going to be here. And he said, what's the amazing thing about it is the coaches that were there before allowed those things to take place. The better players, you see it at times, they can do different things and be like, they can get away with it. They might make bad decisions. Okay, I'm going to cover up for it, whatever it is. And they let it go. But all these other kids see that in the program. They're like, well, coach, I mean, he's letting that go. But what this kid said, he goes, coach, guess what? When they kicked off the best player because of this taking place, everybody's like, oh, man, coach means business. Oh, man, he means what he says. So they're like, we're working hard. We're following line. We feel like we're ready to do some great things.
Yep.
Because where they come in, they're holding everybody accountable.
Yeah.
Not just the people that they're not the stars and they're not really going to do something. We're going to hold them accountable. We're going to let the other guys do whatever. No, everybody is held accountable to the same standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you gotta really be comfortable with yourself. I was somebody that was so focused on winning early on in my career that maybe I would decrease the standard. But as I've gotten older and comfortable with who I am and my coaching style, I haven't let the standard drip or dip. When I was coaching boys in high school, somebody might show up late and we might still start them because he gave us the best chance to win. My first 8 years of my career, and it was like, man, I can't continue to do that because it really affected the whole team. This past week, our best player, averaging 18 points and 15 boards a game, was 5 minutes late to our we usually get to the game an hour before. They go and stretch right at that hour. They go downstairs and they get their dynamic stretching routine so then they can come back and shoot. And she was late. She said she had to go to the bathroom. Okay, well, that's fine. Well, you're not starting. And I just double-checked with my assistant coach. He's like, yeah, well, that's how we do things. And she didn't start. But, she didn't pout about it. She knew what our standards are. That's not how we do things. And she, came out there and still dominated the game and got her double-double like she always does. But you have to set the standard and you have to remain consistent. And that would be my advice to any coaches out there or even parents or administrators. Be consistent with your message across all situations. And if it falls behind that line, you have to feel comfortable enough in yourself as well as your team culture to make sure that you set the tempo. If you don't like the temperature in the room, then you're the one that's going to change it. But it's not going to dip because the rest of the group wanted to dip.
Yeah, and I think going back to what you said is communication is the key. I don't care if you're running let's say a program like yours, a club program. Yeah. I know, like you're a high school coach, being a high school coach. I don't care what level you're at. You have to overly communicate. And you got to make sure you communicate with the parents. Mm-hmm. You got to make sure you're communicating with your coaches. The players were all on the same page. Here's how we do things here. Here's what we stand for. Here's accountability. Here's how it works.
Right.
Like I tell individuals when I have like the programs I told you that, the teams that I have, playing for me now, and these parents ask me, I'll be like, this is how we do it. I lay it out. And this is what your kids are going to get. And if this is what you want, then no hard feelings. Then go somewhere else. But if you want to stay here, follow the processes and great things will take place. And
Yeah.
I think that's where it's like the communication is really big, because if you don't, and things are miscommunicated or they're not communicated, then people start to read into things,
Yeah.
right? And that doesn't go good.
For sure. Uh, what have been some of your difficult moments in coaching, covering a long, 25-year period plus? It's not all peaches and berries, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
down times, but can you share with the audience some down moments in your coaching career?
Well, I mean, I think anytime when you're coaching, um, part of it is you're trying to help every kid you can. And sometimes you can't get through to certain kids, right? And there was one year that I had that the kid was a really nice player. I mean, he played Division 1, and we had to go in a separate direction going into the 17, from 16 to 17 every year. He really thought I was making a poor decision, and we weren't going to succeed without him. And we did good the following year. Um, and I didn't want to do it, but I felt like I had to do it because he had to learn and he had to grow from this experience. And, he came back years later when he got done playing, and he played some professional, but he kind of bounced from one college. And now then he goes, Coach, I now realize what you were doing for me.
Hmm.
And I didn't at the time. And I wish I would have. You're trying to help me become better.
Yeah.
And I was like, I loved you and cared for you. I wanted the best for you. But sometimes, you got to release something to have them grow, learn from that. So I look at that as when you say it's me is when you so much want to help kids and you feel like maybe you haven't been able to get that player to be able to have this light bulb moment to be like, oh, it clicked.
Yeah.
And you had to move him on to something different. I mean, that was hard for me. And I think when, I think for me at times when this is something I evolved in. I think when you first start coaching, for me, tough things was like, I think a coach, you want to control so much. You want to be in
Hello.
control.
Yeah.
It's your ego.
Yep.
You want people to think you're a really good coach, right? You're the man. And I think at the initial stage when I did that, the way I maybe responded to parents sometimes
Mm.
when they would maybe ask some questions, do stuff, and maybe it wasn't the best way. Instead of like, I think like more of excluding them or isolating them and removing them per se. More for me now, like with parents, I tell people all the time, I think you have to have parents involved in the process. It's more of the village mentality, right? And you got to work together. And there's a
Right.
way to do it. And there's a way to talk about how to communicate, have their players communicate to you for certain things. And there's a way they can communicate to you and things they can talk to you about. The things they really, I don't want parents coming and talk to me about my X and O's, execution, this type of stuff. We're talking about Chris is they're another player in the team, playing time, what they're doing. They can come and talk to me about their child, challenges they're going through, maybe at home, outside the sport, whatever, things they see, whatever it might be, or just their child in general. So again, I think for me that's kind of a hard lesson. I feel like just connecting with the parents better, that we're all together, working together, kind of like PJ Flex says, like rowing the boat. We're all
Yeah.
together, rowing that same direction. I think that was kind of a hard lesson for me at times, and being comfortable with who I am.
Yeah.
Like you talk about being comfortable with who you are, so you don't feel threatened at times,
Yeah.
right? You're okay with somebody, and everybody. Like I tell people all the time, you're not going to please everybody.
Yeah.
You never are. So I tell kids this. This is a great thing to tell kids too, Chris. We're talking about this. Is like I'll tell individuals, and I heard this one time. It's like a kid. You might tell them like, "Hey, listen, you're never going to please everybody in your life. You never are. Any choice you make, not everyone's going to be happy. So you might as well do what you want to do.
Yep.
But before you do it, ask yourself these two questions: what are going to be the consequences of this decision?
Mm.
And the second question, ask yourself, do I want to live with those consequences?
Right.
And if I don't want to live with them, then don't do it. Right. And I think for me, it's like as I've grown older and been in the game more, it's like it isn't about me. It isn't about me looking a certain way. It's about collaborating with the parents and the players and everybody together to do what's best for this child, to develop them through the sport and to help them succeed in and out of what they're doing.
Wow. Yeah. Well said. Um, One of my friends and mentors, Wade Nakamura, who just retired. We played him in his second to last game this past week. He mentioned that he would probably handle, some early on in his career, the parent situation. And I think a lot of young coaches can say that same thing, even old coaches. But you hit the nail on the head. You want to work together. It's basically like a partnership. You guys are partnering for the betterment of these children, and these children are going to turn into adults one day, and hopefully because of the symbiotic relationship that you guys come together, it helps because you're working together, and that doesn't mean that you have to agree. Like, the parents don't have to agree that you're playing their child x amount of minutes, but they do need to understand, like you mentioned, there are protocols in place for you to have that discussion, or the kids to have that discussion with the coach. And the kids know, like, the kids know most of the time, and the parents don't, because they're only focused on their own child, not focused on the other 11 individuals on that team. And everybody wants the same thing for their child. They want the absolute best. They want their child to thrive. And sometimes it's not going to come right away. The best things that we ever have come from hard work, dedication. You get knocked down, you got blood. I know you had Kelly Oubre Sr. He said, one of the best things that I heard, he said, I wanted my son to taste blood. And we recently got my son into karate and martial arts just because of that. I used to do that. I forgot that I used to do that, but it helped me so much with my discipline now to this day. But, like, I remember the first time I tried to break a board, I couldn't break it. And I came back. I couldn't break it. A couple weeks later, I ended up breaking it, and I held on to those boards because it was an accomplishment. I had to go through some adversity, and I couldn't break these boards.
Well,
And
that's one thing you talk about. Like, here's something like this year, and this is helping parents out,
yep,
because parents are great, but they can sometimes not think straight, and they say and do things that that put themselves maybe in a not a good position, and people
yep,
might look at them. You see parents acting crazy at games, like, that's Craig, the guy down the street, the dentist or whatever. Oh my gosh, I
yeah,
know he's kind of like that. But the emotion of sports with your child can make them do some crazy things. So we get done playing the game this year, and I get a text from his dad, and he's like, "Man, good job." I was like, "Okay." So then I'm like, and then all of a sudden I get a text. I don't respond to it. I get a text a little bit later. It's about 2 minutes later. He goes, "Hey, by the way, my son is seems like he's kind of hesitant to drive to the basket." I'm like, "Okay, this is more than hey, nice job tonight." And then he said something out. My son is like, and I finally I called him and I said, "Hey, listen," I said, I want to communicate this in a good way, but I want you to understand, I don't want to hear from you about this.
right,
And listen, this is what I've talked to you about from the beginning. Your son needs to communicate to me. If he is having a hard time driving to the basket and he doesn't feel confident in that, he feels like I'm coaching him a certain way that's preventing him from doing that, he needs to communicate to me. But I've never told him throughout any practice games, don't drive the basket. So now, and he goes, well, I was going to have him reach out to you. And I go, why didn't you? I mean, you're reaching out to me first. Don't do that. And I said, this isn't, I don't want you to understand. I want you to understand this. I want you to be a part of your child's life. But listen to me. He's getting ready to go to high school next year. And I want him to develop skill sets he can walk in and talk to his high school coach
right,
when he's having challenges, situations, because the high school coach will have more respect for him in doing that.
for sure.
That he can go in and talk to his employer, his boss in a job. He can do that. So if you go in and you're the parent and you're trying to micromanage, you're trying to communicate for your child in high school, and he or she's not a high level type player, or they're not really good, they're probably going to get cut. So there's a certain way you got to go about this.
Right,
So I want to help you, right? So take this in the right way. So I think that's what we got to really communicate with parents, because understand this is like we are preparing them to be the parent of themselves. Because think about it, I tell kids all the time, you get done, say you leave the home and you're on your own, right? You graduate from school, you're on your own,
hmm,
and you're in your apartment or wherever. Who's your parent? Who's your mom? Who's your dad?
Right.
And like some of them say, well, I am. Exactly. You're the parent of yourself. So you have to develop the skill sets right now, the habits to be able to parent yourself at that time. And that's what we're working on doing, being able to do those type of things. And I think that's important to help people understand because they don't think like that.
Right. One question that I want to ask you, and I learned this at an early age from my first job, but it's about presence, having a presence wherever you're at, having conviction in your voice when you speak, being able to be confident with the knowledge that you have, and being able to present that in a way that other people can understand. That's one thing that I would say if you were to give me one thing about Coach Jim, I would say presence. You have a good presence about you. How did you develop that? And then for your personal, and what would you say to people trying to increase their presence with whatever they're doing?
Well, I tell individuals, so with Breakthrough Basketball, like I said, we have camps all all the way throughout North America. And so I'm part of training coaches, and we have curriculums. And, we have curriculums developed out to where, like, if you're going to a certain camp in San Diego and you're going to one in Boston, it's like McDonald's, you're going to get the same camp, right? Now you're going to have a different instructor there. Mm-hmm. So what I'll tell instructors all the time, you go in, I say, you can go through the materials, you can get this down, right? And some of you already know anyway, but you keep going through it, how the flow of it. But once you walk into that gym, you own it. You can't go in trying to second guess yourself, question like, should I say this? Should I say this? Should I do this? Should I what? You go in and you own it. And the thing is, you got to understand, you're never going to be perfect. No one's perfect. No one. I mean, no one's Jesus Christ walking around here, right? In the sense. So you're going to make mistakes. So too many people, we beat ourselves up because, I didn't say that the right way. Yeah. I didn't do this the right way. Okay. Well, the thing is, maybe you did it in a way different than what someone else did it, but maybe it had more of an impact, or someone might have heard it differently or whatever. That might have had a great influence on somebody. But I think you have to come in convicted in what you're teaching. You got to believe in what you're doing. And then you got to go in and go, I know I can. It's almost like you got to think it, be it, do it. I got to think it. I got to see myself. I got to think. I got to know I'm this type of person. Then you got to go be it. You be that person before you actually take the action. You act like that person. And you go do it. When I first started doing camps, when I got out of college coach, whatever, I'd be in there. You just walk in, you act like you're in charge. I tell people all the time, if you walk into a camp and you got 1,600 people, I'm like, shh, boom, spread in, let's go. Come on, let's go. You get them in and you go, hey, glad. And then you're starting to talk to them. You say, what are the things we listen with? What do we listen with? Oh, our eyes, man. You're going through all this stuff. And you're going from one to the other, and you're looking me in the eyes. And I'll tell people at times, how it is when I see people that do like talks and maybe at camps, I say, you can't have these big sheets you're pulling out and you're kind of reading through it. You might have some cue cards or whatever, but you're going in I might look at something, okay, I'm on this next time, I'm going this next, bang. And you're going and you're teaching. And you're doing it without having these things you got to look at, and you're doing it like you really know what you're doing. Right. Even if you maybe don't know it perfectly, you're doing it in a certain way because people come across like, whoa, wow, this person is like a master at it. Or think about this. They always say, it's not so much what you say, it's how you make them feel, right? Yep. How are you making them feel?
Yep.
So I think that's part of it going in. Like even coaching, think about this. I tell individuals all the time, I don't care if you're like an assistant coach in high school, you might be in college, whatever. I challenge you, certainly, of course, college, NCAA rules, but coaching like younger kids, coaching teams, being a head coach. A head coach is different than being an assistant.
No doubt.
My head coach used to tell me, I was assistant in college. I was like giving suggestions all the time. He goes, Jim, don't take this personal. I might say no to 99 of your suggestions. I might say yes to one. The one might help us win a game. But understand, you're only a couple inches removed from me. But the seat I'm sitting in is different than yours.
Right.
It might not seem far away, but the final decisions are on me. And everything comes back on me, not you. So I got to make decisions I think that are best. I got to live with those. Right. So, but I think like as a coach, If you're an assistant, you've never been a head, go be a head coach, coach a team, because you got to what? You got to manage what? Lineups, rotations, right? You got to make adjustments, time and scoring situations, fouls, what's going on, communicating with officials. I mean, there's all kind of things you do. And to me, I'll tell you this, every coach after a game, I know we beat ourselves up sometimes, and losing's hard for some, because when I was young, losing like takes life out of you, winning reinstates it. But you got to understand it's a fine line between winning and losing, right? And it's like you can't let your highs be too high and your lows be too low. It's somewhere in the middle. You got to meet it. But always after games, I'm gonna ask myself, okay, what could I have done differently? What could I have done better? Oh man, I wasn't thinking, man. Hey, that team, we only have 3 team fouls, and there was only like 20 seconds to go. I could have fouled, bang, 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 and maybe they wouldn't even got a shot off or done this, right? The things we could have done differently. Oh, next time I'm going to do this. So don't beat yourself up. Just, okay, let me learn from what I do really, what I do well, what I learn, take notes, and then adjust the next game. You'll constantly get better, because being a head coach is a constant, you're evolving. You're constantly growing. If you're not growing, you're not looking to get better each and every day. You can't stay still. You know, that is you moving forward or you're falling behind. And hopefully you continue to learn and grow. You move ahead and get better at what you do.
Yeah, and that's good advice, because I think a lot of people, they just need to start. If they want to do something, just start. Like, you guys have a podcast, you just started. You didn't, you got the information that you needed, and then you just started. And then I would say, like, if you have to give a public speech or something like that, make sure you prepare. I'm a no-note guy too myself. So whenever I give a speech, I'm not using any notes, but I prepared it. And I don't have to write anything down. I can kind of just think my thoughts, or I might, if I do write something, it's just quick little bullet points. But my wife was like, man, you don't ever have to write anything down when you give these talks. Well, I've had so many reps over the years. Literally, I'm doing this every single day coaching. I'm doing it every single day teaching. And my first job was I was a tour guide at the Winchester Mystery House, and I had to memorize a hour and a half script that you had to make it fun for, little toddlers all the way to people that were elderly. And that I hated that job at first. But it's the reason I can speak now with clarity and conviction, and I thank my mom to this day for getting me that job, because I had to get some gas in my car, and I was 16 years old, and she went and got me the job. I didn't even have to interview, and I have to study this whole thing. I had no clue how I was going to get that done. But now, when I have to give a speech, like when I spoke to the football team, they were like, "Coach, can you come speak?" Yeah, no problem. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want me to talk about? Oh, I don't know. It's the playoffs, so get ready to. Okay, cool. So I just come up with something in my head the night before, and then I just present it. But you just have to get the reps for people that are looking to coach. Like you said, just do it. And for people that are running camps or whatever it may be, just make sure you prepare. You can prepare the night before. You got a friend, you could tell them what the curriculum is. All right, we're going to get down to the baseline. We're going to work on force and sideline baseline, if that's what the curriculum is, and stuff like that.
But I go back to what you said too, Chris. There's so many materials out there. I mean, I've been coached for 28 years now, and I constantly am learning every day. I subscribe to stuff. I watch stuff. With DVDs, I'll just watch basketball related stuff. So my challenge for anyone is there's no reason why you can't learn the game of basketball and evolve with it, right?
For sure.
And study. There's so many materials out there, like you talk about. If you want to, maybe you go coach under somebody that's a really good coach and has a great system. Maybe you go into some camps that are really good camps. You can learn from there. There's so many places you can do that. And you can become a better coach by studying. I think studying is such a key to just evolve, because think about it, even when I started coaching and when I was in college, this was back in like 93, the way I do skill development is so much different than what I did then. We weren't teaching the Euros and the pro hops. We weren't teaching like the floaters. We weren't teaching, I'm just saying like basic type, even getting into certain type of finishes, certain type inside hand finish, things you would do that now people like, They look
And,
at you like old school coach to be like,
and by the way,
by hand, what are you doing? Right?
I watched your finishing series today too. By the way.
No, but like you said, I'll tell people all the time now, like this is what the high level players do. And don't get me wrong, it's not about my dog's barking. Hold on a second.
Oh, good.
But it's not so much like, listen, like you're not going to take a second grade kid that doesn't have the fundamentals and you're teaching them like step back jumpers,
Right.
for fadeaways, floaters. You're not doing that. But what I want to say though, as kids evolve, there's a certain way to develop skill. I believe in that you get to a certain point, like Dwayne Wade, the Kobe's, the Michael Jordans working with. They weren't working on certain things until they mastered certain fundamentals, right? Then they layered it. It's a layer and skill. But I go back to talking about this. It's like I'll be doing something and showing something to the person that'd be like, oh no, you got to plant your inside foot, outside leg. You got to plant. Every time I go, I get what you're saying, and there's some foundation to that. But what if I went off my outside foot, and went bang inside hand? What just inside hand? What if I went to inside hand and I shot it with my strong hand and I made it a higher percentage? Wouldn't that be better? Because we're talking about making baskets.
Hello.
We're not talking about looking a certain way. We're talking about scoring, right? And there's a certain way to do it. So I think it's like, I think you got to evolve and you got to look at, you've been maybe taught a certain way, but can you open your mind up and say, is that a better way? Could that be more effective? That makes sense. Look at you at your splash lab, breaking down shooting. The ways you teach shooting was probably different than maybe it was taught in 1970.
Sure.
Right? It's evolving. But what's the better way of helping players to put them in a better position to succeed on the court?
No doubt. And I also watched your 1-2 versus hop today, and I do the same thing, and I didn't even know that we were gonna have that chat, but you teach them multiple ways to do it, and then they find the solution for that best fits them. It's not gonna a one size fits all. Hardly anything is. Um, and I think if you approach it that way, and what happens in games a lot, like I used to be teaching Euro steps and pro hops and all that. I don't teach them a whole lot for our high school team if it's not like in the summer or something like that. During the year, it's all jump stops and pivots. Pivot away from pressure. If you get into the lane, you have to have a solution. Now, what is the solution? How can you slow it down? Give yourself a jump stop and a ball fake, whether that be shot or pass, and then you can make your determination there. If you need to catch up, that's how you're going to get the catch up, because all you really need the defense to do is lift basically 1 inch. If they do that, you got them no matter what. You can make a pass, and if they stay down, then you got to pivot away from pressure and then make a pass. So you're hitting exactly what I've learned over the years, and guess what? It's going to change for you and I in the next 5 years. But
think about what you talk about too. It's like even in shooting, so many people are trying to get in like NBA type stuff, like the step backs and the extra stuff they do, and I get like some of this stuff is good, but a lot of stuff is like catch and shoot. I mean, that's a high percentage. You look at like a lot of points scored is just can you catch and shoot it? So like it's mastering certain parts of the fundamentals of the game, and a lot of kids get bored with the fundamentals.
right.
But the fundamentals are the key. Can you master the fundamentals, right, and not get bored with them?
Right.
And so, like you talked about, I think also like we do our camps. I'll tell people all the time. It's like you people are, well, you should do the hop, or that's what you should do the whole time, or you should do 1-2 step, or and I'm like, here's what I believe in. Like I might have an idea how I think something should be done, but if kids are coming to my camp and say they're playing for Coach Chris, and say I'm a hop person, and Coach Chris 1-2 stop, okay, and I'm in camp and I'm teaching them a hop, and it's the way it's got to go and the way you got to do it, and then you go and you're playing for Coach Chris most of the time, how beneficial is that? But if I'm at a camp and I show you different ways, right, to give you different solutions, and I say, listen, whatever your coach, where you're from, your high school coach, whatever they do, I'm showing you different things. We're going to work on it, but eventually I want you, as we're breaking out, we're doing stuff, we're mixing it, do what you do best. Do what your coach asks you to do. We're going to master that, right? And so that's why I think it's so key is like, oh, somebody be like, well, why aren't you doing permanent pivot foot? Well, why a small percentage of people are doing that anyway. Why would I want to do that? And I'm sending a kid off somewhere where they're not even going to do that when they go back home. So it's making it more universal And there are things, and I know in the game of basketball, it's universal.
Right.
And it's amazing how anymore, like, I swear, like, people put so many names to stuff. Everything's got so many different names to it. It would be great if we got to the point where it just made it all universal type names to things like that anymore.
Right.
But people, we all put different spins on it to maybe promote stuff, sell stuff differently, things like that. But it goes back to the basics, mastering the basics.
Right. No doubt. As we wrap up here, how have you been able to create a life around basketball or create a living around basketball? So many people would envy the position that you're in, would envy the position that I'm in. Like I love. Don't get me wrong. We have our challenges every single day, just like everybody else. But I absolutely love the going to work because it doesn't feel like work to me, whether it be teaching the classes that I teach, whether it be the club basketball, high school basketball, or the businesses that we run. Uh, I'm in love with it every single day. How have you been able to put yourself in a position to do what you love every single day and impact so many people?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think sometimes, as you say, you work hard, you're doing something you're passionate about, and good things take place. I mean, I was fortunate to, have the opportunity to, be at when I was at UMKC with Matt Souther, and we had a vision of starting MoCam, being a part of that from the beginning, and that was a great opportunity. But then that led into breakthrough basketball and good things taking place from that. But also, too, I think you got to go about being great at what you're doing where you're at. And then, certain people notice that the law of attraction, things come from it. And I think the other thing is what I've been able to do is I'm a visionary. So I'm always thinking and creating things because I think you can be a basketball coach and you could be a coach at say, a high school, like you said, and you might be there doing that, but you might think, okay, what are different ways? Maybe I want to create more revenue. Well, what are ways I can do that?
Right.
I got a gymnasium. Like I said, maybe I can sit there and I can have some CAMS clinics. Maybe it's something I can form some teams and I can have other coaches coaching them. They can pay fees and whatever. There's always ways to do things. And that's what you do. You put yourself out there. You created a vision. You went and took action. You've attracted people through it that have allowed you to do what you want to do. So I've just been able to, I think, like I said, go do what you want to do, be passionate about it, but be creative, find different ways, go provide value to others. And through that, good things start to take place. And I am fortunate to be doing something I love to do and controlling somewhat of my schedule because every coach is different. You know this. Family's big for me.
Mm-hmm.
I love being around my family. I love spending time with them. And some coaches, maybe not as much. They like to maybe coach in college or pros, and they like to travel more, and it's okay with them. So I think every coach is different. What is it that you really want? And then how would that look for you? And then what action you got to take place to make that happen? And then go take that action to make it a reality in your life and connect with good people, good people that can help bring some of those things into your life as well.
I love it. That's great advice. And as we wrap it up, just like your counterpart, Jason, I asked who should be on Beyond the Buckets. Who do you think would be a good guest to talk Beyond the Buckets?
There's a guy named Charlie Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Miller. I'm telling you, he is the real deal.
Okay.
And he played at Indiana.
Yeah.
For Coach Bobby Knight, the general. And he was a McDonald's All-American coming out of Florida, but he's got a heck of a story. And also he played professional, but he's really developed into, when he first came out, have you ever been around individuals and he's told me this, is like, I played the game at a high level, but I didn't really know how I did it.
Mm.
And then when he started coming with breakthrough and he started getting trained and running stuff, he's like, oh my God, I never thought about teaching and doing this. And he's a sponge. This guy studies so much. He's actually the Splash Lab. He's the one that sent me the Splash Lab stuff. He purchased that stuff and went through it. I'm telling you, he went through it. And he was sending me stuff. This guy's like, he's such a great connector with kids and does things a certain way. But I'm proud of him. But he's an excellent coach and he really cares. And I'm telling you, and you'll love him. Coach Charlie Miller. I can hook you guys up. And by the way, I know you had Coach Craig on.
I did, yeah.
Coach Craig. You know how to say his last name?
Ashmore.
Ashmore. Yes. I tell you, that guy right there, if he's listening to this, shout out to Craig. Because I had Craig on my Nike Global EYBL. We ended up winning the championship, but it would not have happened if he wasn't coaching. That guy is a stud. He can coach. I love his discipline. I love his philosophy. And I know he really gives, cares and really impacts kids and amazing things through basketball. But I'm telling you, that guy can coach. And he does it for the right reasons. So shout out to my man, Craig.
You guys are very similar. And that's why I'm so glad I started doing this podcast, because I knew Craig from afar. I had never met him. I just watched his games, just I know most of the coaches in the Bay Area, and I would watch his teams. They would always perform well, sometimes outperform what their talent level is, and he's always got those kids playing hard. And he watched one of the other podcasts with another coach that he really respected, and he's now retired, but that opened that door. He reached out to me. He said, "Hey, coach, I love what you're doing." Blah blah blah. He didn't even want to come on. He didn't even want to come on, and I said, "Hey, are you okay to have a chat?" We talked. I was in Costco before I got to Costco. I was on the phone with him. I was in Costco for about an hour. I don't even know if I got all the stuff my wife wanted me to get. We talked that whole time and until I got back home, and it was an amazing conversation. And then, we obviously did the podcast too, but same thing here. It's like you never know what doors are going to be open if you just open your mind and say, "Hey, it's okay. Let's chat for an hour."
Now he's a guy like, when you sit there, and somebody taught me the other day, like you wouldn't be a great assistant coach. Like we were talking, joking around. I was like, I wouldn't for some people. Because sometimes I'd sit there and I'd be like, what are we doing here? Right? This isn't the way I see things. But there's certain coaches that I would be a really good assistant for. He would be a guy that I could be a good assistant for because I feel like he's doing it the right way. When I feel like people are doing it the right way, I have to be around people that have similar philosophies, certain way of coaching, a certain way. And he does that. I mean, it's like, the experience I had a kid in an area and he had a chance to play for him. You're blessed to play for him. So just I wanted to give a shout out because he was a big part of my life during that short stint, and I always think about him.
Thank you. You should reach out to him. If not, I can give you his number.
No, I got his number. I'll connect with him.
Well, thank you so much for joining the program, man. It's been awesome having you on, and I look forward to continuing to maybe we bring a breakthrough basketball camp out here. I don't know.
Maybe so. Maybe we got to figure something out. Maybe we have you start leading some breakthrough basketball camps. Doing stuff. Putting some on. We'll see. Definitely. You never know what takes place, but I'll tell you what. Keep doing what you're doing. And keep doing it the way you want to do it and the way you believe in. Follow your heart. Stay true to your purpose and what you believe in. Stay on that path because you'll feel much better about it. Things will be more attracted to it. You're going to impact people the way that you're called to impact people and make a difference in their life. So keep it up.
Appreciate that, Coach. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.